mic check, please.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ducks Unlimited Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Brazier.
I'm your host, Katie Burke.
I'm your host, Dr. Jared Henson. And I'm your host, Matt Harrison.
Welcome to the Ducks Unlimited Podcast, the only podcast about all things waterfowl. From hunting insights to science-based discussions about ducks, geese, and issues affecting waterfowl and wetlands conservation in North America. The DU Podcast, sponsored by Purina Pro Plan, the official performance dog food of Ducks Unlimited. Purina Pro Plan, always advancing. Also proudly sponsored by Bird Dog Whiskey and Cocktails. Whether you're winding down with your best friend or celebrating with your favorite crew, Bird Dog brings award-winning flavor to every moment. Enjoy responsibly.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Ducks Limited Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Harrison, and today we have back with us in studio Mr. Kyle and Cam with Expanded Perspectives, and to my right we have Mr. Clay Baird. And if you follow us on TikTok or Instagram, you probably came across one of our videos of our last podcast episode with you guys, because our last episode got millions upon millions upon millions of views and likes. The engagement was unbelievable because of the stories that you guys told. So we are so excited to have you back and hopefully maybe tell a story or two.
Yeah, we're super excited about being back again. I think this is maybe fourth or fifth time we've done the show. This is our second time in person. Yeah, and it's amazing. And thanks to Ducks Unlimited, because you've now opened an audience up to, like, you guys are welcoming to stories like that. And I think the last show had such success is because a lot of people have strange experiences, may not be so comfortable with telling them, but then they find a safe space and they're like, wow, that person's story is very similar to something that I saw. And I just thought I was crazy, or I didn't want to bring it up. And it's like opened up this whole new community.
Yeah.
For everybody. And that's the same thing we experienced. I'm sorry.
Even if they don't have a story of their own, who doesn't like a good, scary story?
Yeah, exactly.
And like y'all
You've
said,
never been scared in the woods before?
in the last
You're a liar
episode,
if you
y'all
say
said
no.
too, is like the more you start sharing, the more people say, I've actually got a story, but I just didn't want to tell it because people didn't believe me.
Yeah.
And now we've seen it, all the stories that were submitted, because we opened it up to our listeners and viewers to submit stories, and we've got story after story.
That's right. Yeah. So there was a big boost on our end too, is we got new Ducks Unlimited listeners that had never listened to us before.
Yeah.
And they're like, dude, I heard you sharing your hunting stories. And then they sent us stories.
Yep.
And then I know people started sending stories into you, and it just grows. And that's what's so cool.
And what's been really cool too is you were saying earlier how now that there's people that listen to the DU podcast because they came, because didn't somebody tell you that?
Oh, yeah. We've had several
lots
that was listening to our show and then saw us on here. And now they listen to the DU podcast. And they're like,
That's awesome.
I'm not even a hunter, but I just enjoy hearing about it.
Yeah.
Right? Just picking up on all that stuff. I'm like,
Who
oh, that's
knew
cool.
that crossover would work?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Right?
crazy.
Yeah, I
But
didn't
it's-
have any idea that it would happen like that.
It's like we discussed last time. Everybody's had something unsettling happen to them, right?
Yeah.
It may not be you're seeing a monster or there's something. It may not be anything like that. But everybody, if you spent time in the woods, has had something extremely unsettling happen to you.
100%.
Yeah, and it just happens.
Yeah. Speaking of the woods,
Here we
let's
go.
get into some stories.
Let's do it.
this.
This first story was sent to us from a hunter. It was after we had made our appearance on this show the last time, and they felt compelled to send in their story. And this takes place where it didn't happen to the person, but it happened to their father and their grandfather. And this took place in southern Idaho in the 1980s. And he said his dad was probably 8 or 10 at the time. And of course, his grandpa, his dad's the father, took him up there. They were elk hunting. And they went to this particular valley. They went to it all the time. They knew exactly where it was. He'd been hunting this place for decades. They made their camp. And normally they go up, not necessarily a mountain, but a tall hill. And they go before sunbreak, and they get up there and they glass and they look. And then they can pick where they want to go down and get into the hunt. So he said it's about 3:30 in the morning. Still dark out. Grandpa and his dad started going up the hill to get to where they get to a good spot. And he said his dad kept noticing that his dad was like trying to hustle him, move him up quick. Like, we need to get moving. And his whole time, he's like, what's the hurry? We get 3 hours till daylight. So they get to this spot, and he said they start looking back down in the valley, and they see 7 or 8 red-looking orbs, like the size of like a basketball. And they were coming down out of this valley, and they went right over to where their campsite was. And he said that his dad told him to get down in some brush, don't move. And they watched it, and these lights moved over their camp. They were on the ground. Some of them were 6 or 8 foot in the air, and they didn't know what was going on. Well, they sat there and watched it for like an hour. And then he said they descended and they went over the hill, and they didn't think anything. And when the sun came up, it said his dad and his grandpa said, we need to get out of here. They went back to the camp, and the camp was decimated. Whatever those orbs or lights were, they opened up all their packages. They strewn everything about, just totally tore it up. Their tents, everything was a wreck. But there was no footprints, no nothing. And he said that they left, and his grandpa never took them back out there. And to this day, they don't know what that was. Was it spirits? Was it UFOs? And this was long before there were ever any drones. The next human, there wasn't probably 20 miles away. And to this day, they don't know what that was.
And their camp was completely destroyed.
Completely destroyed. Yeah. Completely destroyed.
I mean, I just can't imagine being hiding over there in a bush
and seeing it.
And just, oh my goodness, looking camp, Dad.
It makes me think of the video. There was videos a long time when they were talking about crop circles in the UK, where you could see those orbs come down and make that, and all of a sudden there was a crop circle would form. Now that may easily just be edited video, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But then when you hear stories like this, it instantly makes you think like they have some way of physically affecting what's around them.
Yeah.
On purpose. Like it's an intentional, the way they can affect it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on the last time I was on the show, I told my story. My only paranormal story that's ever happened to me is when I encountered an orb, but then I later found out that it was a Native American burial ground. So in my case, I thought it was a spirit or something. But in this story, the person didn't really experience it, but they know that his dad and his grandfather always tell him that story. They seem to think it was probably something extraterrestrial.
Because you said they were 20 miles away from
civilization. Yeah, they're in the middle of nowhere.
I've heard a lot of orb stories, and it seems like there's something parallel going on with them. So you hear orbs and maybe there's UFO activity, or there's orbs and a lot of times Bigfoot activity, right? So it seems like when there's orbs around, it's some sort of energy that's associated with something else that's a little more tangible and recognizable and nameable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you can put your finger to.
Yeah.
So, the orbs we always laugh about, feel like fae.
Yeah.
Like when you hear the stories and you think of like Tinkerbell from Peter Pan,
Right,
that's what
yeah.
the orbs feel like.
Yeah.
Right? It's like this glowing, because that's what she looks like in the cartoons and all
Yeah.
the films, is a flying orb. And it's not until you get a good clear look that you're like, oh, it's a little pixie. Like, what the heck? That's what it feels like as it moves. And when you start bringing up, you start thinking about the connections to Bigfoot or to these other unknown creatures that people see around them, it starts making sense. It's like, maybe it is all fake.
Yeah.
Like some kind of crazy fey relation.
But I don't even know what else that could be. You
Right,
know what
no,
I mean?
this
Like
is-
you
this-
can't even come up with anything else. You said 7 or 8
7 or 8 red-looking glowing
I mean,
orbs.
like somebody
What's
out there
out
with
there?
a red headlamp.
Right.
Let's destroy this camp.
They got like a fishing pole and they have like reds and they're just walking around with it hanging off the fishing line and kicking down tents.
You're giving
Like,
people
bro,
ideas.
Yeah. But first of all, that's not a safe move, right? Don't do that when you're out there hunting. Like that's not the best thing. First, it's not a great idea to sneak up on guys with guns. Like that's not how that works.
I wouldn't recommend
Wouldn't
it.
recommend
But
it.
like the person that was telling the story, this took place in the 80s, so nobody had drones back then.
Yeah.
And without them directly seeing it, they're just retelling the story. They couldn't describe the size of it and stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's like, when you hear a story, I'd like to ask a lot of questions. But, that person
Man.
didn't really reveal any of those details. But
Yep.
I don't know what it is. And like, speaking of drones, just a couple months ago, there was all those drones all over New
Oh,
Jersey.
yeah.
Yep.
Like, what was that?
Right.
And then it just gone and nobody talks about it
Yeah,
anymore.
and everybody's like, we don't know what it was.
I'd kind of want to know.
Right.
I still kind of want
I
to know.
still want to know.
Somebody knows.
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
Somebody knows.
Somebody knows.
I don't think it was just hobbyist.
No.
Delivery drones?
No.
Here's your pizza.
Yeah, right. No, if you see the size of those things,
Like them out of the water.
we have a lot of drones here in the office that we operate, and if you see the size of those drones, those are not hobbyist drones. Those are thousands of dollars. Those are big drones.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're huge.
Yeah, so
What is that?
where we live in Texas, there's actually services where they have these massive drones and they spray.
Yeah. They're doing it
Yeah.
where they spray
Yep.
like prickly pear. They go out and treat ranches.
Yep.
Because it's faster and all, and they're pretty big too.
Oh yeah.
But not the size of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to have a drone large enough to carry around 3 to 5 gallons of liquid, right?
Yeah.
For an extended amount of time, 20, 30 minutes, probably 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And even then, those drones aren't that big.
2 AA batteries ain't
these things
getting that done.
No, right? And it's not even as big as the ones that we've seen on there.
Yeah.
So like we can tell they're mechanical. These orbs aren't that.
Yeah.
Like, bro, that's not what that
Yeah,
does.
no sound, no nothing.
Yeah.
Like this is, it feels as crazy as it sounds. It feels natural.
Yeah.
Those orbs feel like it's almost something in nature. Like, oh, that's always been there.
Yeah.
Like it's weird.
You know, and if you're a listener and you're listening to that story, you're thinking, all these explanations for
Yeah.
it. But when you're there and it's 3, 4 in the morning and you're seeing that, you're probably going to need to change your pants.
Oh yeah, you're ready to go
yeah.
home. You're
Yeah.
like, yeah, I think I'm done. Cameron. I think I'm just going to go ahead and bounce. Take me a good trip. Get back
I'm
to
out.
the house.
Well,
Yeah.
sticking with
There's
the
no orbs in my front yard.
UFO theme, we received another one. This came from a Ducks Unlimited listener. And this took place, he said it was November 24th, 2013, which November 24th is my youngest son Luke's birthday. He said he graduated high school. He was just about to go into junior college, and this took place in Columbus, Mississippi. He said it specifically happened at the Highway 50 slough off the Tom Bigby River. And he said it was a cold morning, about 4:30 in the morning, and he was going to put decoys out, but the water was frozen. So he had to go in there and, break up the ice so he could get his decoys out there. And he said it was a beautiful, clear, starry morning. And he said he was just looking up at the sky, trying to take in the views for like 10 or 15 minutes. And then he saw these 2 stars. He said it looked like they were stars, but then he noticed that they were like moving weird. And not just moving, but like moving in sequence together, like choreographed, something strange like that. And he said he didn't want to say anything. He was out there hunting with like 4 or 5 other guys. But he said he just kept watching it. And he said he watched it for like 20 minutes. And then finally he went to his buddy. He's like, come here. Like, look up there. Do you see that?
I don't want to.
And he said, the guy's looking and he's like, what is that? And he's like, I don't know, but I've been watching it for like 20 or 30 minutes. He said they just start looking at it and he can tell that the lights are getting closer. Like whatever it is way up there, it's coming. And he's like, his buddy's like, dude, I think that's getting closer. And he said it just keeps descending and descending upon him. Now, no noise, no nothing. And as it gets closer, he can see that the lights aren't 2 stars, but it's like the ends, one end of the ship, he calls it, not a saucer. He said this thing was a ship.
Like you can
Size
see a
of-
physical connection between the lights, maybe.
Yeah, like it's on either end. He said it was like the size of a cruise ship. And he said this thing's just descending upon him. And now, of course, all the guys are seeing it. And he said one of the guys is like, let's shoot it.
Typical
Right?
Mississippi duck hunter.
We had to get comments
I got
on
this.
that.
Ain't no
I would
doubt.
too.
Yeah.
Well,
Typical
we-
Mississippi duck hunter. Hey, look at
Everybody.
that, boys. You think we can bring
Right?
it down?
Isn't that
Everybody on 3. Take your plugs out. On 3. You ready?
Hey, Bobby, you got a 3.5 inch in your blind bag.
Yeah, but imagine you're some interstellar
Send
space traveler, and the first thing we do is let's shoot at it.
Right? They've traveled light years to
It's
get
no
here.
wonder nobody wants to visit here, right? I mean, it's like that's our first instinct.
Like these guys out in the country will be cool to talk to. We're taking fire.
But he said it kept getting closer. Now all 5 guys are watching it. And he said it got to about 150, 200 yards away. It's about as close as it got. And he said it was just hovering over the water. And he said it was like cloaked, but you could still see that something was there. Like you could see the 90-degree angles. He said you could even see what looked like hangar doors, like for loading and unloading. And he said it was completely silent. And they watched it, he said, until the sun started to break. And then it just quietly rose and ascended back into the atmosphere until they couldn't see it anymore. And he's like, what was it doing here? And he said there was 2 things that they came up. He said, one, maybe it was descending upon the river because they needed water for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, he said that there's Columbus Air Force Base is only like a few miles away, so maybe it was observing the military base. He said they went on the hunt that morning after it left. They did good. They got like 20 birds. I mean, it didn't disrupt anything.
So
To this day, the rest of them, they have no idea
Could have
what
been
they watched.
scouting.
I admire them for continue to hunt.
Yeah.
no
I'd have
doubt.
been like, you know
Yeah,
what?
don't let a
You know
UFO
what, boys?
Let's go to the
disturb you.
cafe and discuss what just happened, this life-altering event we just
But
shared.
a lot of these stories you hear or maybe from one person that sees it. But you said there was like 5 people that saw this thing.
Yeah, and this guy's name was Jared. So thank you, Jared, for sending that in.
Jared in
thanks,
Mississippi
man.
saw this, but like you said, it was super quiet and it got in there and out of there without making much noise. Like, I mean, I could be wrong. It may be something military that they have, they have that we don't know about.
Exactly.
But, I mean, for an object that big to sit there that long and you not be able to hear it, like, that's pretty
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah, one
yeah.
of the guys wanted to shoot at it, and he was like, no,
That's
we
the
don't all
best.
need to be abducted right now. Just leave it alone. But
Every time a story comes up with guns in it, and Kyle's telling, I'm always like, well, how many shots were fired?
Yeah.
Because I already know, like, dudes, you like that. Don't sneak up on guys with guns. All you aliens listening, better be careful. Like, them dudes
Especially-
in Mississippi will open up when you come
Exactly.
in there and surprise them like that.
I'm a Mississippi boy, and it is a wonder that thing didn't have more holes than
Everybody.
Swiss cheese in it.
Well, they wanted.
Well, that's
and
right.
if I was hunting, I would want the craft so you could use it for your blind, right? You can
100%.
get in it. Look how perfect that would be.
Yeah.
It's invisible. Like, can I get a little of that?
well,
Can I drive
back
it?
to the
just once.
back to the drones in New Jersey. That was the joke where we're from. Is like that wouldn't happen over here,
Yeah.
or over Mississippi,
Yeah.
because
Yeah, no,
people
we're gonna
there'd be
shoot 'em down.
rednecks shooting.
Oh,
Yep.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be a game, and it's how many can you get, and then you're hanging out with your buddy. He's got 15. You got to shoot down more, and it turns into that.
You got to show up at the taxidermist with a small gray and be like,
Yeah.
"What's it cost to get this thing
It's gonna cost
mounted?"
to
How can I
thing
process
mounted.
this?
Yeah. You think you can turn that into boots?
You almost wish if you're in that situation that something else would have happened.
Yes.
Because it's just on the edge of
Just
like
enough
knowing
information.
something, but it just complete mystery. I'm gonna descend, hang out here for a while, and then I'm out.
I'm going to give you just enough to scratch your
Yeah.
head and be like,
no lights were
what was
flashing
that?
or anything, no door open. You didn't see suction of water coming up from the river.
No, but what's crazy is like with all these stories, like he said, the 2 lights on each end of it, and I guess that's what he saw. And you hear this all the time with all the sightings. If they want to be in disguise or they want to be clandestine,
Yeah.
why do they have lights on them? I mean, because
Why
the
is there
only reason
landing
airplanes,
lights on an invisible craft?
the only reason
Right.
planes have lights on them is so they can see one another.
Because we put them
Well,
there.
why would UFOs need them? I don't know, but they always talk about lights
Yeah.
on them.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
If you are trying to be not
Sneaky.
seen, not heard, why are you going to put 2 lights?
Here's the other part that'll really kind of freaks me out is where did that technology come from? And then do those others that they got it from not use lights? Right? Like, do we only use them? But there's others out there that don't use them. We're like, oh, those aren't from here, right?
Yeah,
like
not
that's how you
seeing
know the
those.
difference. Like they're visiting,
Yeah.
right? Like,
And do they
oh,
have like on boats where it's a red or green light so you know which is the left and right side?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
UFOs have a similar
You got
thing?
to pass me on
Well, and the
left.
drone, there was a lot of talk about that in the drones in New Jersey, where they were following like FAA guidelines,
Yeah.
right, with their lights.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Make sure both brake lights work on this thing, boys.
And to be honest, maybe we're looking at this wrong. Maybe they put the lights on there so like folks in Mississippi don't shoot at them.
Yeah.
Right? So it looks like we got to try to blend in, guys. Everybody just act cool.
act natural.
Just act natural. I know we're invisible. I know we're 3 foot tall and leathery and hairless. Just try to blend in. That's all they're trying to do. It's my turn to share a story. And this is a story that I really enjoy. This comes from Steve. Steve, thanks for sending this
Thanks,
in.
Steve.
This is something, first of all, it hits all the spots for me. I had something like this similarly happen. He starts talking about seeing a pig, and I'm going to get into this. This happened a few years ago in Jefferson,
Texas.
Texas. It's in East Texas. We've been there. They actually have a Bigfoot conference there, like crazy. Yeah, because it's the pine curtain, and all that stuff like y'all got around here, the whole deal. Steve worked for a local company, a delivery company delivering chemicals to a place from Louisiana out into East Texas, bringing it down to Jefferson. He said at the time this was going down, he's on the phone. Everybody works alone. We talk to our friends. You're driving around. He's on the phone with one of his coworkers, just, shooting the breeze, driving along down in there. He said as they're going up, he gets to what they refer to as the pine thicket of where they have to go in. He's on the phone. He says it's a long dirt road. He's cruising down it, and he says there's a little pond that's up there on the one side of it, a nice pond. And as he comes up, he can tell where the water is stirred up on this pond. So he's just, there it is, stirred up water. Everything's great. Talking to his buddy, he's like, hey, I see the mud and all this stuff. He goes, oh, wait, there's a hog. I see this big pig laying right in the edge of the water. So the guy's telling his friend, he goes, now I'm going to speed up. I'm going to scare this pig. I'm going to try to run him off one way, If he runs out in the road, I'm going to swerve the big truck at him. I'm going to give this pig a hard time, right? I've had this happen to myself walking up on a mud hole one time.
Yeah.
But I had a little pig about this big pop up. Looked like a little muddy football, and I thought I was going to have a stroke because you're right on the water when it decides to run. So this is all I'm thinking about. He said, so I'm going, Steve says he's going towards this pig, sees it at the pond, and it stands up. He's like, all right. But he goes, it doesn't stand up like a pig. It stands up using its elbow. So it like props up and then goes to standing up on the side there as it gets up. Not even remotely close. He even makes a point to put, it looks exactly like a human using its elbow to get itself up off the ground. He says this thing continues to stand. It's skinny. It's kind of a grayish brown color. He said its ears are bent overs like mule's ears, the way they just flap and hang down.
Yeah.
He said it has a snout that looks like a dog's snout that comes out off of this thing. It stands up, turns, starts taking these huge strides, and moves off into the woods till he couldn't see it anymore. He's like, man, I don't know what that thing was. He said it had the body of like a very skinny, like emaciated human, but it had the like skin, like a wild hog skin. You can see under the hair, and then it had hair. So he goes on to say, he was like, you know, I guess talking to his friend, he's like, I don't even know what just happened, right? Like, I don't know what that was. Drives on in, makes his delivery. While he's out making his delivery, he's like, man, you know, it's starting to get dark where he had to get out. It's right at dark by the time he got there doing the whole thing. He's like, man, I'm getting a little eerie after seeing that.
Yeah.
He's not far from where he had the sighting to start with. Says he gets that feeling like, man, there's somebody or something is watching me. So he starts looking around before he's done. Says he sees what he can only assume is that thing about 150 yards from him, 200 yards at the most. He goes on to say that it's weaving. It's like moving, like it looks like it wants to run, but it's just watching him back there in the brush, checking him out. Now, I always think of when you start talking about seeing the movements, we hear about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, all these doing what's known as tree peeking, and you'll hear them talk where they look out around the tree and slip back. This isn't it. This thing is just standing there like, is it going to come to me? Is it going to run away? Whatever it was. Steve said he had enough of all that, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't
so he
stick around
jumps
to find
back
out.
in the truck. Yeah.
No.
He's like, I jump back in the truck, pop the lights on, I'm gone. This thing moves back off into the woods. That was it. And that was the whole sighting that Steve ended up dealing. He's like, I don't know what that was. I have no idea what it was. What it sounds like is a Dogman. And Dogman is exactly what it sounds like. There are stories of 7-foot-tall werewolves that walk around just like the whole Bigfoot stories, except they're werewolves. And they come, where was the first one? The Upper Peninsula, UP?
They're
in Michigan.
Wisconsin and Bray Road, right?
Yeah,
The work
Bray
of
Road,
Linda
yeah.
Godfrey was the
Yeah,
first person
and-
to really report on it.
There was a bunch of sightings, and then we've gotten tons of sightings, but it's funny that like these will just pop in. At random, you'll get one like, oh, I thought it was a Bigfoot. No, it turns out it was a werewolf. Like, what's that? There's no such
Or a
thing
blend
as a
of the
7-foot
two.
tall wolf.
Or the blend of the two. You're like, you get descriptions where people see something and they think it's Sasquatch or whatever, but they're like, it didn't look like an ape. It looked more dog-like.
Yeah.
Its legs
Which I always
look like
think
a
of, well,
dog.
maybe you saw
Ears
a bear
like a-
because
I mean,
bears are kind of dog-like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a
it's
lot
always
of times they'll talk about their legs being bent like a
The
dog,
wrong
their
way.
back legs. Yeah.
like a dog's, right?
And this one was laying in a pool of water.
Yeah, laying in
on the
like
bank.
mud. It'd been
And
wallowing
then it
around.
used its elbows
like
to get
pushed
up
itself up like you're getting up off the couch. And he's like,
and
well, I
got
better
on
get out of here.
and got on two legs, right?
And big strided off into the woods.
But do you think, because you said, what was the guy's name that submitted the
Steve.
story?
Steve.
So you said that Steve went on, did his work,
Yeah.
had an eerie feeling, and he turned
Saw it again.
and saw it again.
So
So
you
do
gotta-
you
it
think
followed
do you think it, that's what I was going to say.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
think it followed him through the woods?
Yeah. I mean, we have a bunch of stories where we have got from listeners and folks in the in about Dogman. And if there's one thing that you've learned about these stories is Dogman's about 99% evil. Every story you hear is never one like Bigfoot's like, you know, like the hippie forest guy most of the time, right?
There's
Eat
Dogman's
tree jerky.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
tree
Dogman's
hugging
not.
hippie Bigfoot, or there's the nasty want to fight, throw rocks at you Bigfoot.
Yeah.
That's the only two camps there are.
But Dogman is just never
Friendly.
Yeah, it's the same idea, and then it goes down a whole path of like, what could it be? People say it's skinwalkers. People say it's demons. People say, I mean, they say all these things that they get into. Like, you don't know because there's no way we can wrap our mind around seeing a
Dogman.
werewolf
Well,
in the woods.
And one of the most interesting things is why do so many people see the same thing?
Yeah,
Doesn't
Yeah.
matter where. It's not like Bigfoot is only a North American problem. They're seen all over.
Yeah.
If you go to China, they're the urine. If you go to Russia, they're the almasty. If you go to Tibet, it's the Yeti. If you go to Australia, it's the Yowie. Every culture sees the same thing. And why is everybody seeing this big, hairy thing?
Yeah.
But yet we don't have any bones or anything.
Yeah. It's similar
It's
with
odd.
Dogman. So a lot of people, when I hear stories about Dogman, people have never even heard the term Dogman. They might have heard lichen or werewolf, but they've never heard the term Dogman. But they're like, yeah, it was this big creature, and they start describing it. It was like, and then a snout like a dog, and the legs were bent backwards like dog legs, and then a host of the show or whoever will say, yeah, it sounds like a Dogman. They never heard of this, so they're not bringing this story from somewhere else. Everybody has heard Sasquatch. Everybody's heard
sure.
Bigfoot.
Yeah, it's the most popular
Dogman's
cryptid.
kind of a new term that's been introduced into the lexicon the past few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, then you start looking into it, and there's like legends in areas like
Yeah.
Louisiana. They have the Rougarou,
Yeah.
which is a dog man. If you go to France, they have stories of like upright walking canines that would terrorize towns and stuff. They have
That
there are
goes back
stories
a
from
long ways in France.
World War One where there's sightings
Probably where
and
they
stuff.
originated.
Yeah, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, and you're like, man, I don't know if that's something demonic.
The only thing animal-wise I could even think of, like thinking about that's a kangaroo.
Yeah, it would look kind of funky like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You
But
know
then
what
they
I mean?
don't stride.
And they bounce.
They're
Yeah,
hoppers.
they don't walk. Yeah. You watch them, you're like, bro, what is that?
But that's just where my brain goes.
Yeah,
Is like, if I had to visually see it.
Something to give you an idea for a long
Yeah.
snout. But everything that they report is it's basically like a Bigfoot, except it's a werewolf.
Yeah.
But here's the really strange thing is you get reports of them having hands like Bigfoot, like we have on these Dogman, not like paws. Now you get some that say they're paws,
Yeah.
but most of them say they're hands, but their feet will be paws.
Yeah.
So
Right, so that's,
I'm like, that's when it starts leading people down to the idea of skinwalkers.
We got another
Start
guy
getting even crazy.
that sent in a story after hearing our East Texas story from the last time we were on the show. That we were talking about the guy that was thermal hunting for hogs in East Texas. And this guy says he's got a story for us all. He says, I've hunted in East Texas my whole life, and I've never seen anything like it. He said, there's a lot of details to this story, so I'll keep it short and sweet. He said he worked for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. He worked in the prison system. Now, he wasn't a transport officer, but he was picked to be one this particular day. And he was bringing a prisoner from the Mark W. Stiles unit in Beaumont, Texas, to another unit in Huntsville. And on these transports, he said they always pick like random roads and routes through backwoods so that no one can know the route in advance to plan an ambush or something like that. So they pick random stuff. So on this particular transport that he was doing, they were going through the Sam Houston National Forest. Now, if you don't know, we've received dozens of sightings from the Sam Houston National Forest. I mean, it's extremely thick. It's extremely remote. Cell phone signals not any good out there. It's just a really wild place. And if you're not from that area, if you're not familiar with Texas, you would never think, because it doesn't look like most of Texas. It looks like you're in the middle of Alaska, right?
It's second only to Alaska.
Yeah.
And as far as the largest forests, we're second only to Alaska in the East Texas forest.
No way.
Yeah, that's how big it is. And they see orbs out there. Like there's all ghost lights. There's all kinds of creepy stuff takes place out there.
So they're transporting this prisoner, and he said they're in a really remote part, and there's this S-curve coming up. And he says they start driving through there, and he says they see this black thing on the side of the road. And the same thing as the last guy. He thought it was like maybe a wild pig or something. And he says, no, this thing stood up, and it's standing on the right side of the road. And he said it's a humanoid-looking shape, and it's got hair about 1.5 to 2 inches long. And he says that the thing saw their transport vehicle, and it ran across the road. He said, but when it ran, it was kind of like a shuffle, like whenever you see an ape. You ever seen like a gorilla get up and walk? He said that's kind of what it looked like. He said it was at least 6.5 foot tall. It was daylight, so they clearly saw it. And he said he looked at the guy that was riding with him, and he said, did you see that? And the guy was like, yeah. And he said he looked at the inmate that was being transported, and he said his eyes were as big as saucers, and he was like, no one's ever going to believe me. And he said this took place in the middle of the day. Everybody in there was shocked, and he's like, we don't have a picture of it. This is wild. And this guy was the person that sent this story, and his name was AJ. So thank you, AJ. It reminds me of the Sam Houston National Forest because we talked to a guy named Mike Mays, and he has a website called the Texas Cryptid Hunter. And what he specializes in is trail cams and photographs of black panthers all over Texas and as well as the rest of the United States. Because the Texas Department of Wildlife and Parks and Wildlife will tell you that black panthers aren't in Texas. They don't exist. But he's got hundreds of photos of them where people, I mean, they're there. Well, anyways, Mike Mays, his first encounter, which got him looking down that path, was in the Sam Houston National Forest.
Same
he
forest.
saw what he said looked like a 6 foot tall, like orangutan colored something. And he said it changed his mind because the whole time he'd heard stories, thought it was all BS until he saw it.
But all three of the people in the vehicle
All
saw
three
it.
of the people in this story saw it.
Can you imagine
Even
being
the
that
prisoner.
inmate when you get to prison? You're like, bro,
You won't believe what happened to me coming here. Like, I feel safer in here.
Yeah.
Right? Like, straight up, like, don't let me out there.
Yeah, so you get these stories from people, and like we always talk about, like, who's telling the story, right?
Yeah.
Is it somebody seeking attention? Like, what are they doing it for? But when you got just like a corrections officer, or
Yeah.
you got a police officer,
Yeah.
or you got a pilot, or somebody just doing a normal job, mailman, and they have this sighting, and they're like, I don't know what I saw, but it's exactly like all the other stories I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not crazy. Everybody, there's a lot of people seeing it. Don't feel bad.
They're trained observers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you lean more credence to somebody like that.
and you said 6.5 foot tall. Like that's
It's
a
big.
big creature.
That's a big thing.
and it shuffled. Like what even could that be if that is?
Well, and then you get wild
you know?
stories, Matt, of like people seeing Bigfoot in like remote areas, like desert almost. And you're like, something that large needs a lot of protein.
Yep.
What's it eating? So it doesn't make any sense, but yet they see it. There was like a famous place where they used to have drag races, I think in Arizona. And it was seen like in a like 2 or 3 night period. Multiple people reported it, and then no one ever saw it again. But it's like, what was
He was
that?
just visiting.
Yeah, right. Just passing
Well, like
through.
Clay had talked about the orbs.
What's the matter? Bigfoot can't like
Being
drag racing?
associated with Bigfoot sightings, we used to always make the joke that
Only
the
monster
UFOs
trucks?
would stop and let Bigfoot out. That's like their dog.
Yeah,
They're letting it
yeah.
out to use the restroom. It runs around, gets
Go
loose.
potty.
They gather it up, and then they take off.
Yeah.
Or they don't want it anymore, so they just drop them off.
Poor Bigfoot.
Yeah, they just release them into the wild down here. Like, thanks a lot.
He's a rescue Bigfoot.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right.
Wow.
So we have to touch on the fact that the last time we was here, everybody listening and watching freaked out about the tiger story, about the tiger
Oh, yeah.
being loose
Yeah.
in Texas and the guy seeing it and all that. We've got something else, and I'm going to give you I'm going to lead into it because I know the story Kyle's got, and I want to lead into it with this. There is a story we'd covered years ago, and I'll discuss if any of you listening have probably already heard of it. If you've listened to us, we talk about it before. If you haven't, you're going to enjoy this. It took place in Arkansas with a bow hunter in a wildlife area. He goes into the wildlife area. He gets to scout. He scouts it. He's got a climbing stand. He picks out his tree. Everything's great. Puts his climbing stand in the tree and the whole thing. The tree he wants to get in, he likes to be about 20, 25 foot off the ground, but the tree he picks in the area he's hunting, he can only get about 12 foot up. That's it. Big fork in the tree. He's like, well, this is just going to have to work. So he gets it all on there and goes. So the next morning's time for him to, like opening day for him to get in there. He leaves at like 4:30 in the morning or whatnot to get in so he can walk way in there, scent free. He's got his leafy suit on, rubber boots, all of his gear, totally camoed out. Walks in there. Everything's good. He said, I can't see anything. I've got my little light, like a little stream light that you got coming off, slipping in there so nothing even knows he's there. He gets to the tree. The base, everything's been twisted the opposite direction. Like it's all, the whole stand's messed up. And it's still usable, but it's just spun in opposite directions, kind of cattywamped. He's like, if you were going to steal it, you would just steal it. Like, what is it?
Yeah.
Right.
He don't even have any under. So he gets it all realigned, stands back up. He climbs up in the stand, gets up there. He makes it a point to talk about, like, it's in the wee hours of the morning, right? Like, it's 5 a.m. It's dark. He said, you can't see anything on me except I have my broadhead sticking out off the end of my arrow. So he's sitting in this climbing stand. It's one of those ones that's got the rifle ring around it,
Yeah.
where you can bench off on. He's got his bow in his lap, arrow knocked, and it's kind of laying off like as you would lay it across the top of that bar,
Yeah.
right? So he can just pick it up, make the shot. He said, when your eyes get adjusted to the dark, even when it's that dark, you can start seeing movement. Like you can see a skunk or a raccoon
Yeah.
or pigs, cows, anything. Well, that's what he sees. He hears movement. He's like, oh, there's a couple of pigs coming. It's dark. He can make out their outlines. He said, as they get moving in close, he's like, well, that's not a pig. I think it's a cow. He's like, what are the cows doing in a wildlife area? He's like, somebody's cut a fence, let them in. Somebody's something, right? He don't think anything of it. He goes, at this point, I'm sitting there and then I feel something brush across my leg. He's like, what could that possibly be? He's like, I didn't feel the tree. Nothing moved. Like, was there a raccoon? Like, what's coming up here? He sits there, says, all you can see is the moonlight and it's kind of shining on the steel of that broadhead. He sees a large black hand reach up and grab the broadhead. He said the minute it grabs that, like, locks down, it lets out a sound that he says is almost like a bull. This loud roar. It's right beside him. He said the minute this thing starts roaring, I start screaming. So it's roaring. He's like, ah! He's just freaking out. This thing takes off. Whatever else with it takes off. He gets down. He's like, bro, I'm done. He climbs down in the morning light, gets down. As the sun starts coming up, he starts seeing what he said was like maybe a little bit of blood, like a little drop or two might be down there. I'm not really sure. But he said he heard like brush breaking, limbs breaking, trees, all kinds of racket, noise going on. He bounced. He said, I stayed 15 minutes, got down right as the daylight started coming up where I could see that nothing was around me and left. He's like, I've never been back in that area again. I have no idea what it was, but he's like, I got a pretty good idea of what could reach up high enough to grab the only thing that it could see.
And you said he was 12 foot.
So you got to think, they start telling stories of 7, 8 foot tall, but they have this reach. So I'm like, well, how big was this thing? Did it climb the tree? Was it what did whatever it was to his stand? Like, we don't know. We have
But it was
no
attracted
idea.
to the shininess of the
It was
broadhead.
attracted to the
And wanted to
shininess
see
of
what
that
it
broadhead.
was and grabbed it.
So I do that for y'all, for this fella to drop this one.
Yeah, so when we were here last time, we told the story of we knew a guy that we hunted with that was in his deer stand and saw a like Bengal tiger just walk through the cedar breaks. And he was like, y'all get up here on a side-by-side. I ain't getting out of the stand until you get here. Well, I guess this person heard that story, and because there's a lot of people that own crazy exotic animals in private collections in Texas. I don't know if the laws are the most lenient there compared to other states, but a lot of people do it. I mean, there's 2 feline sanctuaries in just the county we live in. But this story was sent to us by a girl named Lainey, and she said that this happened to her dad's friend. There was this guy, and he wanted to get into hunting. He'd never done it before, but he knew some guys that he worked with there at this, whatever corporation this was, that were hunters, and they like to go hunting in East Texas. And he's begging them to take them for a while. So they're finally like, okay, Roger, you know, you're going to come hunting with us. So they take him out there. Now, this is his first time hunting. So he doesn't know nothing. They tell him how to do it and what to do. They give him a gun. They let him shoot it. They show him how to work it. They let him sight it in so that he's proficient with it. They show him this 20-foot box blind that he's going to be hunting in the next morning. So he's good to go. They eat dinner. They go to bed. Wake up early. They all load up. They get in the side-by-sides. Drive him out there. You get in the stand, just like it did to me when I was a kid. My dad would do that. And you're like, we'll pick you up 2 hours after sunrise, you know. Good luck. Call us if you need anything or whatever. They leave. So this guy's in there, and it's like, well, it's pitch black. He's got nothing to do. And there's a little hole in the bottom of this box blind, like 8-inch by 8-inch. I don't know what the reason is. They never really say in the story. But anyways, he's in there. And he's sitting like we all do, trying not to fall asleep because it's dark, you know. 30 minutes goes by or whatever. And then he says he feels like somebody's shaking the stand or a cow's rubbing on it. Something's moving it. And he's like, man, you know, maybe this is the way it goes. I don't know. He's never been hunting before. So he's sitting in the dark, but he could feel movement. And he says, is it my friends like trying to jack with me? Like somebody, you know, not that I would do that. But he keeps experiencing it. After like 3 or 4 times, he's like, I wonder if I can look through this hole and see what's bumping up against this thing or shaking the stand. So he gets his cell phone out. He turns on the flashlight, and he looks out that little hole in the bottom of the floor. And he says right when he does that, this big hairy hand shoots up through the hole, grabs the phone, and pulls it out. He freaks up. He jumps up to his feet. He grabs that gun, and he starts shooting through the floor of the box blind 3 or 4 times.
Don't blame him.
I'm sure he was
Panic
screaming.
mode.
Yeah, I'm sure he was screaming. I'm sure he needed to change his underoos. Well, his other friends, they're hearing all the gunfire, and they're like, what's going on? So they get in the side-by-side, And they drive up there because
It's
they're
not
like,
even daylight, right?
I don't know what Roger's shooting at or whatever that, And
See duck hunting over there?
yeah. And so they get in there, they get up there, and they said, as soon as they show up, he's screaming, Bigfoot, Bigfoot, Bigfoot. And they're like, what are you shooting at? And he's like just animate. He's panicked. They said they can clearly tell he's frightened. And he just keeps talking about Bigfoot, and Bigfoot took his phone. And, these young guys, I guess they can't do nothing without their phone, right? So he's freaking out. Well, then they start, what are you shooting at? They see blood. And they're like, well, he clearly shot something. And they get down. They're like, go sit in the side by side. Give me that gun. Don't move, right?
You're in
Wait here.
timeout.
Yeah, timeout. Yeah.
Take a deep breath. We'll be right back.
Well, they see this blood everywhere. And so they start tracking. They start trailing the blood. And not 60 yards away, lying in the brush, is a fully grown adult male silverback gorilla.
Do what?
They call the local authorities. Turns out one got loose from a zoo nearby, and they hadn't seen it in a couple of weeks.
No.
So now
way.
they have the tiger story from last time, and then Laney is the one that sent this in.
A legit
A gorilla.
A gorilla.
A silverback gorilla.
At least he left the guy's arm, right? Imagine he just grabbed you by the wrist. Now you're in
Let's
real
just
trouble.
think it. Could you imagine it being your first time to ever go hunting?
Yeah, I don't think the guy ever went back.
No, that's it.
And
I don't
you
blame
get
him.
your phone taken by a silverback gorilla?
I would have done the same thing. I would have started shooting.
There wouldn't be enough bullets
No.
in Texas for me to shoot at that thing.
No. So when I think about his friends, I go to the angle of his friends that come up. He's telling this story, and then they find blood. At that point, I'm like, now I'm worried because I'm like, did you shoot somebody?
Yeah.
Like, what? Were you just, it's Bigfoot. You sure you didn't shoot a cow? Like,
Or somebody
what
playing a prank.
Yeah,
Gotta,
like, what
because you can buy a
happened?
gorilla suit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there was a guy a couple years ago that dressed up in a Bigfoot costume and jumped out on the road to scare some girls, and they ran him over, and he died.
Yeah, they
That's
smoked
dead.
him.
And that's legit. Like, that's
yeah.
that's not
Yeah, it's not too smart to get underneath somebody's deer stand and start shaking it. That's
with a gun.
There's
you know he's got a
look,
gun.
you can play all the games on your buddies at the deer lease or at hunting camp that you want at camp. When you leave camp, I wouldn't suggest that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, we're already talking about creepy stuff. None of y'all are going to get amped up, shoot at your friend. Yeah, like that might happen, right? Like, don't shake my stand. But the idea of going to the guy that you first took hunting and there's blood and he's having a breakdown
I'd have been
and you've
panicking.
left him there 20 minutes, yeah, I'm like, something bad is going on. Like, I wasn't prepared for this. I was just going to come out and hang out, right? I'm going to have some butter rings, maybe have a little chocolate milk, wait for the sun to come up. No, I don't
Getting
think so.
attacked by a gorilla.
I got to fight off a silverback.
Did he get his phone back?
I don't know. I never.
That's a
I never-
great. That's a great
question.
point.
I don't know.
Hey, let us know if he got the phone.
Yeah,
Send that
follow
back
up
in.
here.
I'd like to know a
Did
little
it-
follow.
did he-
I've made up some elaborate stories to get my phone replaced after I've dropped it before.
But never that one.
You
That one
going to
takes
use
the
that
cake.
one next time?
Yeah, that one right there.
How do you take that into the phone store and be like, "Hey, what'd you do with it?" Well, I was on a hunting trip and a giant silverback gorilla grabbed it.
Well, and this
Like,
is what we talk
what?
about. Like famous boxers like Mike Tyson had tigers. People
Yeah.
buy these exotic pets. They either get too big, they can't take care of them, so they just release
Release
them.
'em.
Or you got licenses and everything to keep it, and it gets out. You don't want to report it gone, so you just like don't say nothing.
Yep.
And I think that maybe somebody, like if that gorilla, say prior to it being killed, somebody driving on a road saw it, they'd be like, "That was Bigfoot. I saw it walking."
Oh, absolutely. Or you're out hunting and it's dusk, either, in the evening or early morning, and you see a silverback gorilla
yeah.
walking 150 yards and you can't see real well.
You would instantly think it was Bigfoot.
Bigfoot. Because
Everybody.
who's going to say, "Oh, we're in Texas, silverback
It's a
gorilla"?
That's a skunk ape right there.
Yeah, right.
Because how
Well,
tall is a gorilla?
I'll get back
Like,
to that.
How tall is a gorilla?
5 foot, 5.5 foot.
Yeah.
So I mean,
And they're vegetarians. They don't even really eat meat.
But they sure will tear it apart.
Oh yeah, they'll pull your arms off for you if you got nothing going on.
skunk ape, so the skunk ape is the Bigfoot Sasquatch in the swamps, Everglades of Florida. If you look at some of the trail cams photos of what that looks like, it looks like an orangutan to me.
Yeah, there's
the
some
color,
that look just like an
the shape.
orangutan.
It could very easily be an escaped orangutan. And if it's living out in the wild and it's got mud all over it, leaves and shit, you'd be like, man,
Yeah.
I saw a Sasquatch. But no, it's still an orangutan. And like he was talking about the hunter traumatized by his first hunt. It makes me think of another story I know. Has nothing to do with Bigfoot, nothing paranormal. But there's this guy I know, and his daughter played softball. And one of her teammates was another guy and his son, and they never been hunting, and they were from the city. And they would always be at the softball game, and he knew that this guy hunted, and he'd always ask him, can you take me and my son hunting? I want to introduce him to it. So after about a year of doing that, the guy's like, all right, meet me here. I'll take you and your son hunting. They want to kill a hog. They had never done it. So he meets the guy's son was probably like 13. Shows him how to use it. This is how a thermal scope works. Lets him practice a few rounds. So he takes him out in this pasture. And he's like, I know this place. It's like a farmer that I know nearby my house. And there's always stuff out here. So they go out there. They're glassing for a while. Calling. They got like a Fox Pro call, varmint call. You're not really seeing nothing. The guy and the son are getting kind of anxious. He's like, oh, this takes a little long sometimes. He said, finally, he sees a coyote come over the hill. And he's like, you want to shoot a coyote? And they're like, well, yeah, we want to shoot anything, you know?
Every time I see
like,
one.
Yeah. He's like, it's coming in. So he gives the rifle to the kid. And the kid's like trying to find it in the thermal scope. If you ever use one of those at night, they're kind of hard. And he sees it. And he's like, when do I shoot? And the guy's like, whenever you want to. So the kid, boom, shoots. And their dad and the kid are high-fiving. Yeah, you know, we got him. And he's like, give me the gun. The guy, and he's looking at the thermal, and he's like, yeah, you got him. Sure enough. And they're all excited and pumped up. He's like, I'm going to go get it, and I'll bring it back here. The guy goes walking up to the dead coyote, but when he gets to the coyote, it ain't a coyote. It's a German Shepherd. They shot somebody's pet, had a collar on and everything.
Called in a dog.
No.
And so the father and son were all super pumped. Now they're super bummed. And they feel terrible. They're like,
What have we
I don't
done?
think hunting's for us. And so when I heard the story of the guy with the gorilla, some people, you're trying to do good and take them, show them the outdoors and give them a good time, and it just doesn't work out.
Yeah, imagine those being your first time ever introduced to what we all do.
I would
and
be
that's what
completely
happened.
turned off.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Be like, this is what it's about.
Like, bro, I'm never doing this again. Like, y'all do this all the time? Like, no, dude, I don't fight gorillas. Yeah. I've never seen one. First time I ever saw one.
I said,
What is
so,
that, the
like-
poacher's edition? Like, how do you get that mounted? Like, that's a heck of a thing to have in your house. Can you get a gorilla mounted? Like that,
I would try.
I bet they might frown on it.
I was like, what'd you do with the German Shepherd? He said, I threw it in the back of my truck and I threw it off a bridge. He was like, I wasn't going to call them and be like,
Tell them we
sorry.
called your dog over when it was out. We had no idea. Yeah, that would be bad.
Yeah.
As a German Shepherd owner, that one hits a little close to
Right?
home. I think I'd rather not know that somebody shot
That
it.
he just ran off and
Yeah.
maybe he
So
died.
somebody
got
stole it.
snake bit or somebody stole him.
Somebody
or-
treated him better than
Yeah.
I did, right? He lived
Somebody
a happy
fed
life.
him better.
Yeah.
That's how cats live their whole life. Right? Is that way? I got one that I have to share. We have to talk about this because the thermal scope story that this knucklehead told blew up. Right? Like everybody went crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's an insanely creepy story. Well, Greg sent us one. He sent this in, and this is the one that all of us have kind of been like, man, this is extremely unsettling. I'm going to share this with y'all. Greg works on radio towers, not just regular radio towers, extremely remote radio towers. He's one of those guys probably changes light bulbs, right? You got to climb them big 1,500 footers. You do all that. Like, bro, you get paid what you deserve. Trust me. I mean, like, that's a big thing, right? So Greg said what the great thing is most of the time when the people that you meet in these areas, he'll ask permission to hunt on these places. And they're like, sure. I mean, you're out in the middle, and we're like, yeah, we don't mind. Come on, you can come out and hunt, do whatever. Like, it's great. So he works it in, the whole deal. So he has a thermal scope. This is another thermal scope story, so buckle up. So while he's going to go on this hunt, he's going to go out there and do all this, brings his thermal scope, he pulls into the job site, right? It's got the enclosed fence, you got the wire around it, all that stuff like you see in all these. He pulls in there, then he climbs up. I'm assuming he's probably got like a saddle, hunting saddle.
Yeah.
Right? He climbs up and hangs on the tower 20 foot or so up with that thermal. It doesn't get any better. You know, there's a road, there's probably right-of-ways. It works great. So as he's talking about it, he said, man, I'm up there about a half an hour before he's going to start hunting. So he's like, I pull up the thermal, I'm looking around, he notices that there's 2 deer. One's got a pretty good limp, one's normal. He said, so it's too early in the morning for him to be able to legally shoot, like in legally shooting hours. So he's just watching them. He's like, they're making their way towards him. It's cool, you know, and it's, look, if you've never used a thermal, it's the most fun, not just because you can hunt at night, because you're watching things that you would normally never see.
Yeah.
Right? You're just like, you feel like you're peeking in on a part of the world you shouldn't be allowed to see. And maybe this is one of the reasons you shouldn't be allowed to see it. So he says he's hanging out there. They're coming in. He said the deer are coming in from like his 2 o'clock as they're making their way over, and they look like they're making like trying to go across to like 9 o'clock as they're coming across. Said a few minutes go by. He's watching them. I'm just sitting there like this, he says, and they stop. They just, all of them going alert. They're looking around. So he zooms in to try to see what they're reacting to, and he starts seeing, oh, there's a glow. Looks at that, and he says, what appears to be a skinny, naked man. And he said, you could tell it was a man. He's a naked man. You could see in the thermal, like, that's a dude, over there. He said, it's creeping towards the deer. So this thing is, it doesn't really say crawling so much, but it's creeping. So I like to picture it maybe like on all fours, like that thing was that you talked about, moving towards the deer. He said, so he's watching all this stuff. It's coming at him. He said from about his 10 o'clock, this thing's creeping in. So the deer have come across here. This thing's creeping in, quartering in on them. They're about 200 yards away. He said when he really notices, that's when he finally sees it kind of come out. It is on all fours, and it's on the path making its way towards those deer, crawling along. Now, he says, when I'm saying that it's not human is because not only was it moving on all fours, but when the deer panic, this thing starts keeping up with them at speed. Like it's faster than the deer, and it's on all fours, just like loping across the ground. Now, at this point, I'm panicking reading the story, right? Because I'm like, dude, could you imagine?
No,
You're witnessing that, and it's one of those things that
I hope
you're
you
like,
don't see me.
yeah, exactly. Well, this is where it gets bad. So the deer split off. The one with the limp, of course, is the one it singles out. Well, it's running full speed. This guy's watching it. Greg's watching this thing run, and he's like, it's coming right at me. He's on the tower. The good thing is the fence is up, right? Gates closed, trucks inside, guns, everything's good. This thing runs directly at him and hits the fence, slams into the fence full speed. He said it's an 8-foot tall chain link fence, got the Constantine wire, right, all along the razor wire. This deer hits it, and it slings it back because it just you're kicking off the chain link, dumps it. Hits on the ground, all this makes all kinds of crazy racket. He said he starts hearing the noise of this thing coming, spins around there on it. Unknowingly, this thing is coming towards that deer, right? Deer's falling around. The guy drops to himself a whisper, a little profanity, because he's a little freaked out. He's like, everybody knows and then the whole deal. And he whispers it to himself. He said at this point, he's like, oh, he's 20 foot up, this whole thing. The thing stops when he hears it and looks up at him. And then it realizes, oh, there's a guy out here. He said, that's not the worst part. He said the worst part is it's looking at him. He can tell it's like a pale-skinned, emaciated, it's sunken-faced. This thing is sitting there, and it starts making sounds, broken noises, as it starts saying and repeating what he did. And he's trying to say it as it keeps repeating it till it starts sounding like him. He said, I'm thinking, I don't know what's going on. It's trying to correct the inaccuracies of the way it's making pronunciation, right, at this point. And then he's like, I'm safe inside this fence. No, this thing leaps the fence.
Oh,
bump, grabs it, bump over it.
Oh, no.
Lands down there.
I'm out.
Greg's the man. And here's why I say Greg's the man. Dude. Greg goes, all right, bud. Boom. Single taps him right in the chest. Thing goes down. Boom. While it's down, he head shoots him. He's like, that's it. Look, you come back. I like Greg, right? Like Greg's like, yeah. We'll figure out what this creepy stuff is looking at its corpse.
Yeah.
And it's a whole lot simpler that way. So he is freaked out at this point. He says, I'm breathing. I can barely breathe. He says, I'm holding my breath. I realize that I finally have to exhale. And I'm like, how long have I been holding my breath? He's shaking. He's all tore up. He said, I'm looking out. I look down. I see the creature. It ain't moving. He's like, okay, we're good. I can get down. He starts getting his safety lines and stuff together, turns and looks back down again, and it ain't there. He starts looking around.
Absolutely.
And he starts hearing noises. He starts hearing these thumping noises. What he sees is this creature is limping. It's on 2 legs, and it's limping, and it's like sliding down the side of his truck, using the truck to help himself get through there. Yeah, the whole thing. This is what he says. I racked a 3rd round, wrapped my arm through the tower, all right? and took a shot when I could see the scope the whole way. Boom, shoots it again. And as he swings around, I'm fixing to shoot it again. It ain't there now. It made its way around behind his truck. Now all he sees is the heat signature. Then he starts scanning around. It jumped back out of the enclosure, and it's in the tree line as he's looking around through that whole deal. So as he gets down, as he can see where the heat signature went, he gets down, he finds blood on the ground at the base of the tower. The blood trail, he said, looked like it had stood up, walked over to the tower while he was messing around, and looked up at him before it decided to make its way off past the truck, hop over, and go back into the woods. He says, I never go out into the woods in the dark anymore, and I gave up hunting. He completely quit hunting, totally. He says, my grandmother is a Native American woman. She's a Blackfoot, and she started telling him about Wendigos when he was a kid. And he says, I maybe think that that's what I saw. So another crazy, emaciated crawler thermal scope where this thing is, the whole story I love, the whole story, because we get the voices again, the same way as it's talking, except now it heard you and it's trying to mimic that sound. But now you already see, like, it's got some crazy superhuman powers. Like, this thing is not.
It's like it's learning, it's evolving, it's adapting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and they talk about with Fae encounters and stuff is that they're tricksters and they try to lure you into the woods by disguising themselves as a woman's voice or a baby's voice. Or
So that may have been what he was doing, trying to make the guy think.
He was learning the voice. Yeah, he's like, oh, I'm going to kill this guy, and then I'm going to use because he doesn't know what any of that means.
So he was trying to.
Well, you got to think about it. If these things are really attacking people, where do you think they hear the words "help me" from? It's the last thing those people are screaming when whatever it does takes.
That's a good point.
So that's all it knows. So now it's learned some other words. Now it's not going to help them attract anybody, but you do get some very strange things where people hear voices in the woods and they're like, well, what is that? Well, I'm not going over there to check it out. Like, I feel bad for anybody that's trying to get real help in the woods and I'm there because I'm not coming. You start, help me. I'm like, bro, you're going to starve. You better charge your phone.
I hope somebody else is out here to help you because it's not me.
I'll go get like 14 other people and we'll come back. But
I'll help you in the daylight. In the daylight.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I'm helping. I will be extremely helpful in the daylight, heavily armed. Bro, I'm
and
there.
if I see you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, since the last time we were here, this archery season, me and Cam were bow hunting, and where we're at, we're about 3/4 of a mile apart. You can't see one another. He's down in this bottom, and I'm up on this hill. I'm in a tripod stand, and he's on a ladder stand. Well, there's this one night when we're bow hunting, because the place we hunt is only archery only. And it sounds like World War III is going on with the hogs. I mean, I can hear them fighting. It sounds like demons in the woods, the way they're squealing. So he texts me and he's like, man, the pigs are going off. And I'm like, bro, I can hear them. So I think they're between me and Cam. But he actually said they were off to his like left side. Well, sundown, I go walking. He's like, I'm kind of scared to get down right now. And I'm like, I feel you. And he's
I
like,
didn't bring my handgun. All I had was a recurve bow.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, well, here we go. This is
Robin
how it
Hood.
ends. Yeah, this is how it ends.
and I'm like, well, I'm not coming down there to help you get down because all I got is my recurve bow. And I'm not very good in daylight with it, especially when it's
This
dark.
is what I get text. I'll meet you at the truck. I'm like, all right, here I go. But I was just hoping one of them would come in. Maybe I could shoot one, run the rest off. But yeah, dude, they were going off. Going off.
And some of the stories we get when it comes to hunting is just like missing game. And you had somebody write in to Ducks Unlimited, and that's basically what this person's story is. They said they went out hunting. It was a morning hunt. They saw a doe. They shot the doe, but there was other deer, and they didn't want to spook them. And also, you don't want to push them in case you put a bad shot on them. So you just sit there. You wait like another 30 minutes before you get out and go find it. And he said he knows he put a good shot on it. Of course, he's rifle hunting, so you can tell pretty easily. And he's like, I saw it die right over here. He waits 30 or 40 minutes, and he climbs down out of his stand. And when he starts walking over to where the doe was, where he saw it lay down, he's like, there's nothing there. He's like, I saw it. I got down, and it wasn't there. And he doesn't know what happened. He doesn't see any tracks. There was no blood. And his name was Coulter, so thanks, Coulter, for sending that in. It reminds me of a similar experience my uncle had not too far from where we live. He was on a piece of property with another guy. The guy went hunting and shot this giant hog. They drug it, put it into a spot where they always leave it. Well, he got the next morning, and he's like, hey, where'd you shoot that hog at? He was like, well, I shot it over here, and I put it over there. And he's like, well, it's not there. You sure you did? He's like, yeah. So he's like concerned. So he gets in his truck and goes back out there. He's like, I shot that thing last night. It's only been 10 hours. We go out there because he wanted us to take a look. There's no tracks. There's no signs of predation. There's no hair. There's no bones. There's no blood. There's no nothing. And from hunting experience, if you shoot something like that and leave it out there, yeah, it gets tore up lots of times.
But there's tracks.
But it's a mess, right? The coyotes.
Yeah, there's always predation sign. Always,
Yeah.
no matter what it is, you can see where there's tracks, where there's,
Yeah.
even if they clean up everything, there's going to be hair tufts. They're not going to eat the hair. They're not going to eat the hide.
Nah.
They're only going to eat the things that matter to them, that gives them the sustenance they need.
It's just like
Nothing.
out of existence.
It was just like if it was laying in here. It was just nothing. It was gone. No drag marks, no blood, no hair, no anything. It wasn't until that exact moment that we learned from another guy that we've talked about that's a researcher for the BFRO or an investigator for the BFRO for years, is that's a common thing, that missing game and possible to being taken by Bigfoot, as crazy as it sounds, is an extremely common thing when it comes to Bigfoot sightings. People reporting it in areas of shooting animals. There they are. I know they're there. Or taking like a pig, but shooting like deer. Deer are like the number one that go missing. Because in the state of Texas, much like in Tennessee and Mississippi and anywhere like that, is look, the only thing that's going to move a whitetail is a human being.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have big enough cats to carry them in their mouths to not drag their feet.
Yeah,
So
you see
even
drag
if
marks
it could
and stuff.
drag, a mountain lion's not big enough to move one hundreds and hundreds of yards and not leave any tracks.
Yeah.
Like you can't. A tiger, could pick it up, of
But
course.
they're
and
still
carry
going to
it.
leave some type of.
But why would they move it? Why
Yeah, they would just tear it
predators
apart
don't really
right there.
They're not going to sneak away and hide it in their house. They're going to eat it, right there, and then that's it. They eat what they can, and they move on. Vanished, and we've learned a bunch of stories of these where animals have gone missing. It's like a common thing with this crazy Bigfoot stuff.
Yeah, you think about it. They probably learned over the years, if it is something like a Bigfoot, they're opportunists. So they're like, it's easier to watch these guys shoot this thing. I'm going to go in, sling it over my shoulder, and I'm out because I'm a shy eater.
Yeah.
I'm gone.
Yeah.
No.
I got to get out of here. Well, and it's, we already know, it's happened in certain bears, like was it Kodiak Island in Alaska?
Yeah.
That they hear gunshots and here they come.
Yep.
Because they know it's like, ooh,
Dinner
free
bell.
meal. Yeah.
Yep.
Free meal. Let's do it. So, yeah.
Well, and unfortunately, it's not just game that go missing. There are lots of cases where hunters go missing.
Yeah, just
And
vanish.
it's unexplained. Like one of the popular ones was Sunday, August 4th, 2002, a guy named Todd Sees was going to go hunting on his ATV, and he left to go hunt, and he never came back. After, 20 hours or so, they became concerned. They called law enforcement. They assembled a big search and rescue team. They got dogs. They got helicopters. They got volunteers. They scoured the area where he was supposedly would be hunting. They found the ATV, but they didn't find him. They looked all over for days, and then finally, after 3 or 4 days, they called it quits. A day or so later, his body is found in the top of a tree, like something had laid him on it. And they said where he was found was in a spot that was searched before. They would have seen it. So he was gone for a couple days, and then they found him dead
Back where they already had searched.
where they had searched. So,
In the top of a tree.
what abducted him? What happened? They said they did a toxicology report on it, and they found like cocaine overdose or something. But his family is like, he doesn't do drugs. Like they smell foul play. Something happened, but nobody knows. And there's lots of cases of similar things happening where a hunter, his whole life, will go hunting with these pals on a place that they always go to, and he just doesn't come back that night. And they go and they find the rifle propped up on a tree. They never find the guy. He's married, happily married, his grandpa. Where did Jerry or whatever, where did he go?
Yeah.
Never seen again. He just went hunting one night and never seen again.
It's one of those David Pleitis missing
Exactly.
411 cases, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. He
There's
has
a
a whole
lot of
book
them.
dedicated just called Missing Hunters.
Yeah.
And there's just hundreds of stories of just odd, doesn't make any sense.
If you enjoy going into the backcountry, doing anything, hiking, fishing, hunting,
Don't read that.
don't read those books.
Yeah.
Well, fellas, these stories make me not want to go hunting.
I know.
Same. You're still going back.
I'm
You're
still
back.
going. But these stories, man, it just makes you, because when you hear this many stories, some of this at some point has to be true.
So they can't
Now,
all-
I'm not saying all of them are true, but for example, we know that some of them are with the gorilla,
yeah.
with the panther sightings that we talked about, that we know that there's photos of. Like, there's creatures out there, there's things out there that make you scratch your head, as in, like, I know something's in the woods that is not normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a silverback gorilla. We talked about a silverback. What are the odds?
We've had people that have seen hyenas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
The gorilla sighting, think of how much worse that could have actually gone.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Right? I mean,
What if
like-
he'd have got more than just his phone?
Yeah.
His iPad.
Because a gorilla versus a human?
Dude, it's
Good luck.
Yeah, it's not even a thing.
Good luck.
Right? Like, it's not even a thing. I just think about, like, what if you'd have bumped into him walking to your stand? Right? Like, what if you're just walking, he's just laying down in there in the dark, and you just come up upon him? Like, it's one thing. I mean, look, we've all scared cows walking in. You almost wet your pants in the middle of the dark when they walk. You're like, oh, I didn't even know she was there, right? Like, oh. But I can't imagine now it's a gorilla.
Yeah.
Right? Like, right turn, Clyde. The next thing you know, your arm's missing. Like, great. How am I going to draw my bow?
And that's your first time hunting.
Ever. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a terrible, terrible thing. Thanks. Look, everybody out there watching,
Yeah.
everybody out there listening, thank you so much for sending in your stories. If you've got more stories,
Send 'em.
Send them. We love stories.
A lot
Fire
of-
them to us.
A lot of these clips will be shared through social media. We'll cut them up, share them with you guys. Respond in the comments. Shoot us a direct message as well. We go through those, see those, because I'm sure at some point we will have Kyle and Cam back to share more stories with us. So the more that you could submit them. And don't be the type of person to say, nobody's going to believe me. I mean, you heard some of these stories. Some people don't believe them anyway, but then there's some that you're like, we know are true. So share those stories with us. We would love to get back on the DU podcast and share those stories with you guys. So we'll be back in here in just a little bit with another part to this. So we're going to go get some Memphis barbecue.
All right. Sounds
How does
good.
that sound?
Let's do Like, share, and subscribe.
Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Like Clay said, Kyle and Cam, thank you so much for
Absolutely.
hopping on.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
We're going to take a little bit of a break, and we'll be back here in a little bit. But thank you all so much to the DU podcast listeners, and also thank you so much to Chris Isaac, our podcast producer. We'll see you back here in a little bit.
Thank you for listening to the DU Podcast, sponsored by Purina Pro Plan, the official performance dog food of Ducks Unlimited. Purina Pro Plan, always advancing. Also proudly sponsored by Bird Dog Whiskey and Cocktails. Whether you're winding down with your best friend or celebrating with your favorite crew, Bird Dog brings award-winning flavor to every moment. Enjoy responsibly. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and visit ducks.org/DU Podcast. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of Ducks Unlimited. Until next time, stay tuned to the Ducks.